Hi everybody, I'm Jim Johnstone. I learned what works in having successful property valuation protest hearing because I spent last summer hearing hundreds and hundreds of property valuation protests. In this video, I'm going to share with you the elements that made those protests successful. Now, this applies to residential properties in the state of Texas. Your state may be different. With that, let's get going and I'll show you how to win a protest. First thing you need to understand is how is your property tax calculated. It starts from the market value estimate for your property. The appraisal district has appraisers. They come up with a market value estimate for your property. Then any exemptions that you qualify for will be subtracted, and that will leave you with the assessed value. The assessed value times the tax rate is going to equal the property taxes. When you go to a property valuation protest, the only thing you're protesting is the market value of your property. There are two ways to protest your market value. One is to do it yourself, and the second thing you could do is you could hire a professional tax agent. Each of these methods has pros and cons, and I'll get into that next. Many property owners do protest their property's market value to the appraisal district, and many of them are successful. Let's talk about tax pros. Professionals really understand the appraisal process. They understand the whole process of doing a protest. They probably are going to come in and do anywhere from a dozen to maybe 20, 25, as many as 30 protests in a single day. They know the laws, they know the protest process, and as long as you give them good information about your property, and they have access to other market information, they should be able to do a very good job for you in reducing your property taxes by reducing your property valuation. Now, there's a charge for that, and it usually starts with a fixed amount that they're going to charge you no matter what. Let's say $50 to make this protest. That's just their showing up amount. If they win any tax reduction for you, they take a slice of that. So you got your fixed amount and your slice of the tax dollar reduction that you're going to get, and that's what goes to the agent and compensates him or her for their work. Now, the agent is entitled to represent you every year. Once you give them permission to represent you on the first year, they have the permission to represent you every year until you either take it away or the property changes hands. Why do I think you can be successful at your tax protest? Because I watched many other owners just like you come in and do their protest. If you're well prepared, if you leave the emotion out of it and just stick to the facts and the logic, you can do a very good job at representing yourself. First of all, the county appraisal district has appraisers who've probably never seen your property. The first time they're seeing anything about your property may be when they show up at the valuation hearing. So you know your property inside and out. After all, you live there. The appraiser may only know what generally is happening in the neighborhoods. The way appraisers appraise your property is they look at several properties in your neighborhood that have sold in the past year. And they look and see what the prior sale price was. And they're looking for a property that sold in the prior year and a property that sold, the same property sold again in this tax year. And they're looking to see what the increase was in price. And then they have to adjust for any, maybe these are house flippers that are doing this. They usually put some money into the property to get that price up, and so there'll have to be some adjustment for that. But the county appraiser is just looking for the general trend upward or downward or flat in your neighborhood. You know your property, you know your neighborhood, you know what's happening there. You can see the inside of your house. The appraiser can't. He has no idea what's going on inside your house. The appraiser may have access to building permits that have been taken out on your property, but they don't really know what the quality of that renovation or repair was. So you're really equipped with a lot better information about your particular property and your particular neighborhood than that county appraiser is, so you can win. Another reason you can win is the appraisal review board is composed of citizens just like you. So they're people just like you. They don't like to pay taxes either. And if they can help you reduce your taxes, they love to do that. So you walk in with the appraisal review board kind of on your side to start with. Secondly, the appraisers want to do a good job and have a fair appraisal of the market value of your property. And they're going to listen to the facts that you present and the arguments that you make on why you think your market value should be something different than what they think it should be. And if they agree with you, they will just agree, and you guys will reach an agreement on a new market value, and it'll be done. How does a protest hearing work anyway? Well, it's a formal hearing. Everybody gets sworn in. Usually there are 3 reviewers that are going to listen to your arguments and listen to the district's arguments about the value of your property. And each side gets to make their presentation, and for you it's going to be a short presentation of about 7 minutes, and you're going to say, I think my property is worth whatever you think it's worth, X, and here's why. And you give the 3, 4, 5 reasons why you think that's what it's worth. After you make your presentation, the district appraiser may ask you some questions just for clarification, or the review board might ask you some questions. My recommendation is you always let the county go first and make their case. Why? Because you may hear something that you know is wrong, and that sets you up to do your rebuttal right away. You may observe things and learn things as the appraiser is making their presentation. After the appraiser makes their presentation, you ask any clarifying questions that you have. Then you can launch into your presentation. Now, it's important that we don't interrupt each other in these presentations. You don't want to be interrupted because it'll get you off track. You don't want to interrupt because it'll make you look rude. And just save all your questions till it's time to ask questions. Don't try to do a rebuttal. Hey, that's wrong. You can't. Don't do that in the middle of the appraiser's presentation. He or she won't do it during yours, and you shouldn't do it during theirs. It makes you look bad, and you can just save that for the time when it's appropriate to do a rebuttal. Well, you're going to get an on-the-spot decision by the arbitration panel. They will deliberate right in front of you. They'll have a little discussion among themselves, which you're not entitled to participate in unless they ask you to. But once they close the evidentiary portion of the hearing, there is no more evidence to be presented. The panel has a discussion, and they come up with a decision. They could either support the district's appraisal, that's called sustaining the district appraisal value. They could support your estimate of value, or they could get in between because They may believe some of the things the district is saying and some of the things, but not everything that you're saying. Well, let's talk about market value. The market value, as I said before, is what a willing buyer would pay a willing seller to exchange money for that property. The district estimates market value based on the sales of comparable properties that are located nearby or in the same neighborhood as your property. Another way the district could estimate value is through replacement cost. So they would take how much would it cost to replace the land and how much would it cost to replace the improvements on that land, and they add those together, and that is another way to determine value. The best way, though, is to compare your property to other similar properties in the same neighborhood and then make slight adjustments where you find differences between the two properties. This is what's known as a sales grid. It compares your property to other properties that have recently sold. And what they do is they look for the differences and then try to make dollar amount adjustments for differences in the land and differences in the improvements on the land. So they start with the selling price of a comparable house and they adjust it up or down based on those differences to your house. At the end, they'll come up with what they call the median value, which is the value that's right in the center between the low and the high value in their grid. Typically, they're going to try to find 10 properties to compare to. Whatever the median value is in the grid, they're going to compare that to their estimate of your market value, and it'll be higher or lower, or it'll be the same as their estimate. If it's lower than their estimate of your property's market value, they usually will make you an offer to reduce it to that lower median value on the spot. And you may choose to accept that if you think it's a good deal. But don't be quick to jump the gun here. Let's see what else you can learn. There's a couple other ways to determine the market value of property. One is by paying a licensed real estate appraiser to do an appraisal of the property. When a private party hires an appraiser to determine the value of a property, that's called a fee appraisal. Many reasons for fee appraisals, like insurance purposes. The insurance company may want to know how much, what's the value of the property that they're insuring. It may be to take out a loan on the property, and it may be to settle a divorce, or it could be because you're considering an investment in that property. Not all fee appraisals are compelling evidence in a protest hearing. The reason is because these fee appraisals are made for different reasons, and they all purport to give an accurate representation of the market value. Because they were made for a specific reason, they're going to be a little bit biased one way or the other. A lot of people go to Zillow and they say, well, Zillow says my house is worth X. Unfortunately, Zillow is not the best source of information on market values. They don't know your house. They have the same problem as the county appraiser, which is they don't go inside your house. They've probably never seen your house. They don't look at it from the outside. They're just not getting into the details. They look at what the county appraisers say houses are worth in your neighborhood and around you. They look at sales data for similar houses around you, but they don't really understand your house. So you understand your house, but please don't use Zillow as the source authority for market value of your house. You're going to develop that yourself based on what you know and the information you know about the market. You can use Zillow to get information about those other properties in the sales grid. If they sold, they were probably on Zillow, and Zillow's probably going to have a lot of pictures of the inside of that house and the outside of that house and a little marketing write-up. Oh, we just replaced the roof, we just replaced the air conditioner. And so you're going to get a lot of information from Zillow. Just don't rely on it for market value. Now, as I said before, the district has to bring all market values to January 1st. So they're going to bring them forward no matter what time of the year they sold. They're bringing them forward to January 1st of the new tax year. If they didn't sell in last year, they're going to bring last year's appraised value forward to January 1st of this year. And to do that, they use a tool called time trending. If you look at the price increase year over year over year, we could say that it's trending. It's either going up, or it's staying flat, or it's going down, or it could be bouncing around. Now, on this graph, I am showing what the median sales price might be versus the calendar month of the year. And nobody really sells property November, December, January, or February because we're in the holidays. We have big holiday celebrations. It's in the middle of the school year. There's a lot of reasons why people just don't sell their house at that time of the year. But come springtime, around April, things start to really pick up, maybe even March here in Texas. And they take off in June, July, August, September as people try to buy their new house, get moved in, and start the kids in whatever new school that they're going to be in, if they're going to be in a new school. So the price trending in a month-by-month basis probably stays pretty flat in the beginning of the year, and then as the season, the selling season heats up, that price is going to go on up. And then after most of the houses get taken off the market and there's fewer buyers out there, you might see the prices start to erode a little bit, actually, because there's more houses on the market than there are buyers. And the way we get market equilibrium is we adjust the price. Unfortunately, the district just looks at January 1 to January 1, and they said, oh yeah, 24% increase last year in the median sales price. So they're going to slap a 24% increase on every house in that neighborhood based on either what the sales price was during the year or based on what they appraised it for last January 1st. So without thinking, we just get the 24% increase. Now, because they do the linear trending, it means, let's say you bought your house in October. They're going to give you, and if the increase is 24% a month, it's 24% a year, it's 2% a month. So you bought your house in October, November, December. They're going to give you a 6% bump on whatever you paid for the house if you tell them what you paid, which I recommend you don't tell them what you paid. They're not allowed to look in the MLS to see what was paid for your house, and you're not obligated to tell them. You don't have to self-incriminate here. Anyway, if you did tell them, they would try to bump it up by 6%. But what's happening is the price is actually going down in the last part of the year or staying flat. And you can argue with the method of time trending and say, look, I think all the increase came in the first 6 months and there was nothing in the last 6 months of increase price. And so that shouldn't be allowed. Now, the appraiser might tell you, well, that's not the way we do things and that's not valid and blah, blah, blah. But the fact is they're constrained to do it that way. They don't really have a better way to do it because they can't go through month by month like maybe your real estate agent could. And so you're going to go there and get that data. And your job is really not to convince the appraiser that they're doing it wrong, but to convince the appraisal review board that you have a more accurate method of determining the market value increase during the year. Now, the district's going to give you all of their evidence that they intend to present about 10 to 14 days ahead of your scheduled appraisal review or your protest hearing. Your job is to take that data and research every property in the sales grid. And if they give you an equity grid, you're going to research those properties. You're going to compare them to your property, and you're going to understand the differences. Some of the properties in the comparables are going to have features that are superior to your property, and others will have features that are inferior. What you want to do is try to knock out as many of the high market value properties from those comps as you can. The more of the high ones you knock down, it helps you bring down your median value. And the district always wants to, if they're wrong on your market value appraisal, they always want to come back to the median value, which is crazy because there's a distribution of values. There's a normal curve to the values of property, and there can really only be one property that's in the median. Though if you have 9 properties, only one of them can be in the center, and everybody else is on one side or the other. You're trying to make an argument that your house is on the lower side. That's your objective. So do your research, get on the CAD website, get on Zillow, talk to real estate professionals, and drive by and take pictures. And if you have issues with your house, like it needs a new roof or air conditioner, get some estimates on what those things might cost and bring those with you to the protest hearing. Here are some of the things you can look for as you drive by. Does the house look attractive? Is the landscaping nice? Is it well kept? Or are things kind of overgrown and falling apart? Does this property have a view? Is it located on the waterfront? How much footage does it have on the waterfront? Look at the lot. Are there improvements on the lot that a buyer would take into consideration, like giant trees, a swimming pool, a gazebo, maybe extra garage, a detached garage that allows better parking? Maybe it's got an RV pad or something like that. The county has a hard time taking those things into consideration because they don't go out and view every property, but you go out and view them, so you're one up on the county appraiser. From the County Appraisal District website, you can often see the survey for each individual property, and you can see if there are easements. Are properties in floodplain, or are there easements or things that make them worth more or less than your property? And then look for nearby nuisances. Do they have a neighbor with barking dogs? Do they have a neighbor that's not keeping their house up nice? Are they in a blighted neighborhood altogether? Are they located near a business that either makes a lot of noise or creates a lot of traffic or bad smells or something else that would make your property less attractive or make one of the other properties more attractive? Those are things that you look for. Okay, when you fill out your appraisal protest form, you notice that to the county that you intend to protest, I want you to check 2 boxes. One is you think the market value is wrong, and secondly, that you think the appraisal was not equal and uniform. That's called equity. It means that the same criteria wasn't applied to your property as was applied to other properties. The reason you do that is I've seen this happen many times where the sales data would support maybe a higher valuation or the valuation that was given for your property, whereas the equity grid might show a lower valuation. And if it does, they're going to give you the lower valuation. So your appraised value is compared to similar properties on the equity grid. So it's appraised value to appraised value. It's just like the sales grid, so always protest value and equal and uniform. So here's an equity grid. The district is usually going to have 10 properties that they have selected, these for them. So they haven't seen your property and they probably haven't seen any of these 10 properties, but they're going to use the data that they get to make some kind of comparison. So what are we comparing? We're comparing appraised value. On the left-hand column of the grid are going to be things like what was the appraised value. So what was the appraised market value? And then they're going to go over what the land is, how big it was, if there's any adjustments that need to be made due to view or easements or things like that, or size. So you have a land value, and then you'll have some adjustments. And then you'll have an improvement value, and that's square footage, year built, and condition, basically, are the three important things for improvement value. And they'll make adjustments to the appraised value or the estimated market value for each comparable to say, well, this one's better than yours, so we're going to subtract, let's say, $5,000 off the appraised value price to get to an equivalent price for your property. So I've done that here in an example, and what you can see is I only have 3 comps. One is 446,000 indicated value, one is 433,000, and one is 427,000. And that's the indicated value after we've taken their appraised value and made adjustments up or down for the differences between your property and the comparable. If we take just these 3 samples, the one that's in the middle is 427,000. So they will quickly offer you an estimate value of 427,000 if that is lower than your property value. Okay, let's go over the elements of a successful protest. Everybody who is successful has a laser focus on market value. You need to start with the requested value. So know your requested value and know how you got to that. You only have about 7 minutes to make your presentation justifying that requested value. And that means you've got to focus on at most 3 to 5 reasons. And start off with your best reason first and work your way down to your least best reason. Should have evidence, written or visual, that supports each one of the reasons that you're giving. When the district makes their presentation, you're going to listen carefully and you're going to rebut what they're saying. That means you're trying to discredit or you're trying to cast doubt on the veracity of their presentation. Their facts are usually their facts are right. I'd say about 90% of the time their facts are right, but their logic could be wrong. And it's again because they don't know some things about either the comparables that they're referring to or your specific house. If you stick with things that you know about your house, you're much more credible. You may not know everything there is to know about the other houses, but I've heard some very effective arguments from protesters who have actually been in the other houses that were used as comparables and knew exactly what the differences were and what the value was for those differences. Bring 5 handouts with you. You're going to have 3 of them will go to the appraisal review board members, 1 for the appraiser if the appraiser shows up. A lot of times they just do this by computer. And then you're going to have one for yourself that you're going to refer to and make some notes on. You should also bring the district's evidence package that you have marked up at home, so when you do your rebuttal, you know the points that you want to make. And again, don't rebut everything, just the 2 or 3 most salient facts that would sway the appraisal review board to lower the market value of your property. Some things you want to avoid during the protest hearing is, first of all, don't get emotional. Don't complain about the tax rates or the government. The appraisal review board can't do anything about those. The only thing that really counts is market value, so just laser focus on that. Objective facts, the laws, and logic are things that determine market value. There are many facts that are not taken into consideration by the county appraiser that a buyer, a willing buyer, would take into consideration in deciding whether they wanted to offer on that property or not. And when you're checking the facts on the appraisal district's evidence package, you also need to check the facts on your own house. I did a property protest on my property one year because the square footage in the description was wrong. In another example that I heard this year, the property owner protested the market value of this property because the appraisal district said it's waterfront. He was a half mile from the closest water, even in the wettest of years. He couldn't see any lake or stream, and he successfully argued that his property was not waterfront and not a view lot. So there can be errors on the appraisal district's description of the property. You need to check that. Okay, let's wrap it up. The first thing you want to do is get your notice of value and decide if it's going to be worth your time to protest. So let's say you think you should protest. Then you've got to decide if you're going to do it yourself or hire a pro. You can do it yourself and be successful. A pro can do it a lot easier than you and in a lot less time than you would take because they know what they're doing. They've done it before. This is their profession. After all, they do it every day, all over the year. And they're not only working in Texas, they work in other states as well. So they know what they're doing. They can get to the matter fast. Stay calm, get prepared for the presentation, and know in your heart you know more about your property than that appraiser's ever going to know. You probably know more about your neighborhood than that appraiser is ever going to know. And so knowledge-wise, you have a superior grasp of the facts regarding what the true market value of your property is. So make your case, win your protest, reduce those property taxes. Now, if you have any comments, leave them below, and I'll try to answer them as I see them come up. Thanks for watching, and I hope this helps you lower your property taxes.